Hey friends, welcome back to Begin As You Mean to Go On. Here we are in the penultimate episode for season 3, and I have lots of good stuff to share with you today. We're going to talk about what to do after you get a lead. And when I say get a lead, I'm generally speaking of getting someone onto your email list, because that is the realm where you can actually have some control over that relationship and what you communicate with them. And it's not dependent on the vagaries of, social media platforms that we don't control. So we're going to talk about what do you do after you get a lead to nurture that person along until they become a client, because based on some of the marketing that I'm getting and some of the things I'm seeing out here on these wild internet streets, some of y'all really need help with this. So we're going to get into it. Before we do that, of course, if this is your first time here with us, I want to invite you to listen to this entire episode so you know what you're getting into. And at the end of this episode, I will invite you to do all the things, to follow us, to subscribe, to leave a 5-star rating and review, like this one from Steph. Steph says, always brings the real deal. If you're looking for rock solid advice and insight for online entrepreneurs, look no further than Karanda's Begin As You Mean to Go On podcast. Karanda will help you cut through the noise and help you get laser focused on improving your business systems, content creation, and more. Thank you so much for that, Steph. And that is, in fact, what we're going to do today. We're going to cut through some fluff and hopefully give you some very, very actionable advice that you can take to the bank, literally. All right. So 4 things that we're going to cover and a bonus, okay? 4 things that you're going to need to have in place to make sure that every lead who comes into your business is followed up with appropriately. And then if you want to get ambitious and you want extra credit, I will give you a 5th thing that will supercharge your marketing and your follow-up. All right, so the first thing is hopefully you have an email list. Again, that's a whole separate episode. But for this purpose, we're going to talk about email. Hopefully you have an email list, and hopefully you have some kind of lead magnet or freebie or something to entice people to get onto your email list. And hopefully that lead magnet has something to do with the product that you're actually going to sell them at the end, right? Too many people have a disconnect between those two things. So assuming you have all those things in place, you are going to want to, first of all, follow up about whatever it is they actually opted in for. So if it's an ebook, if it's a masterclass, if it's like whatever it is, whatever the thing that you offered them, you want to deliver them that thing. And then you want to give them specific follow-up about how best to make use of that thing. So that is step number 1. And you're going to notice all throughout these steps that the key thing that we're focused on is relevance. The more relevant and the more specific you are with your follow-up and your communication based on what people have done, what people have opted in for, what people have told you, the better results you're going to get. And I'm going to give you specific examples from my own business as we go through. So, for instance, you may have opted in to something like, I have a resource about what tools we use in our business. And so if you opt in for that, then you're going to get delivered that product. It's going to be a resource inside of our vault, and you're going to get specific follow-up. You probably hear me talk a lot about the pot of gold on this podcast. That's a small product. And once you buy that product, then I have specific follow-up that is geared towards encouraging you and helping you to make sure that you access that product, that you make use of that product. And in fact, we have a hot seat coming up. One of my pot of gold fans who is very non-technical was expressing, that it's really great. And the limitation was really more about her technical limitations on learning how to use it. So we're going to do a hot seat inside our Service CEOs Facebook group. And you can come and you can join the group and you can get either the live or the recording of that hot seat. If you're someone who's like, ooh, I've been looking at this and I think it might work, but I'm worried that, I'm not techie enough to use it. Well, we're going to have a live demo and you can come in and watch that. So the follow-up has to be specific. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you want to, for people who are new to your list, right, who are brand new, again, I talked about this on a previous podcast, you want to have that that getting to know you sequence, right? That welcome series that's going to tell them in general about your business, about how you work, about how you're different from other people in your space, and about how you're actually going to help them solve whatever problem has brought them to your digital doorstep. Okay. So that is the welcome sequence. If you're having trouble figuring out what should go in the welcome sequence, I'm going to have an awesome resource for you that I'll link to in the show notes and I'll talk about more in a little bit. So the getting to know you sequence is not for selling. It is literally for building that relationship, for letting people, learn about how you got into doing what you're doing, how you became the expert that you are, right? Gaining some credibility, and just helping people to build that trust that, yes, you actually know what you're doing and that you can help them solve their problem. Okay. So that is the getting to know you sequence. That's the second thing you need to follow up with every lead. The third thing that you need is you need a campaign to actually sell your offer. Whatever it is you're selling, you need an email campaign specifically to tell people, hey, this is my flagship offer. This is my main thing. Or maybe it's an introductory product, right? But you need a campaign to sell your offer or your offers, right? And you need specific emails to tell people like why they need it, what they're going to get, how their life is going to be different after they actually purchase this product. And if you just do those three steps, right? You're already going to be ahead of, say, 90% of the people out there, because most of the time, you've got people who don't have an email list, or they have an email list and you get on it and maybe you get one email that's like, hey, thanks for joining our list. And then crickets, because they don't have any follow-up, right? They don't have any automation. You're going to be ahead of so many of the people out there if you just have those three things. You follow up specifically about whatever people opt in for. You have a general get to know you series that introduces yourself. And then you have a campaign that actually sells the thing. Okay. Telling people why they should buy it, giving them a link to click and go buy it, right? You do those three things and you're going to be ahead of so many people and you're going to make more sales. Okay. So that's the first three. The fourth thing you need is some kind of long-term nurture strategy, because guess what? Not everybody is going to jump on your email list and then read all your intro emails and then read your campaign emails and then buy. Like, they're just not. A very small percentage of the people are going to do that right away. And for the rest of the people, it probably just means the time isn't right. So now you got to stay top of mind with those people until the time is right. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves. In fact, if you go back to the trailer of this podcast, I think I talked about how annoyed I get when I really know that I want something. Like I'm think, oh, this is going to be really useful in the future, but it's not the right time. And there's no way for me to get on their email list, or I do get on their email list and then I don't hear from them for 6 months. And then by the time I'm searching for the thing, I either can't find it or I hear from them and I've forgotten even why I wanted that thing. Right? That is one of my personal pet peeves. So you need a long-term nurture strategy. And that could be as simple as you write a blog post every week and you send it out to your followers. It could be as complex as having a daily email strategy. So recently in the last couple months, I've gone from doing, really just weekly emails about this podcast to really having a whole daily email strategy. And at this point, I have to shout out and give credit where credit is due, because a large part of that strategy is thanks to Rob and Kennedy over at Email Marketing Heroes. And I will link to their daily email strategy course in the show notes. And here's what happened. I was referred, someone that I trust said, oh, this has really been helping me out. And so I went to check it out. And I went and checked it out. I grabbed the daily email strategy course. And within days, I was like, wow, this is really good stuff. I need more. And I upgraded and I joined their membership. And I went to look at the dates because I have to say, I came back from a week-long vacation. I was camping. I was out in the woods with no signal. And I came back to a bunch of Stripe notifications. And that is directly attributed to all of the things that I implemented that I learned in Rob and Kennedy's email marketing program. So I went and looked and I joined their membership on May 15th. And then I busted my ass for the next probably 6 weeks or so, and spent about 80 hours like revamping my entire email marketing strategy based on what I learned. And even though I do this professionally, it's like I say this all the time to clients, like you can't see the label when you're inside the jar. So having, being able to lean on someone else's strategy and and lean on what's worked, right? For this specific thing, like making sure every single lead is followed up with, was great. I just had to look at like, oh, I need this piece, and implement. And even with all of that sort of heavy lifting done, it still took a ton of work. I probably spent at least 80 hours revamping the strategy, remapping my email marketing, mapping out new campaigns, writing new campaigns, putting them in place. It was a ton of work. But you know what? I've definitely surpassed making back the investment on getting their help with that. And the key piece here is that now, like, Stripe notifications just show up because I'm still getting paid. People are still buying things from emails that I wrote 6 weeks ago. And a year from now, people are still going to be buying from emails that I wrote a year ago. Right? That's the beauty. That's kind of the holy grail people say they want to get to. And most people are not willing to put in the work that really is needed to make that happen on a grand scale. So having long-term nurture, if that's something that like scares you or you think, I don't know what I'm going to be able to write, I'll leave a link in the show notes because Rob and Kennedy have you covered when it comes to email prompts and email strategy. Okay. So let's talk about the bonus. The bonus is, you have these things in place and you're following up with people, but you're kind of doing it blindly unless you know more about them, right? So the reason we want to collect information from people is to be more relevant. And so if you have a way to ask people what they need, right, to send them a survey and ask them just specific things. So like we are launching a site for a dog training business. So if you had a pet related business, you could ask people things like, how many pets do they have? Is it dogs or cats? What are the ages? Things that are going to help you to be more relevant and more targeted in the kinds of offers that you put in front of them. That is the bonus. And that's the thing that's going to supercharge. And I tell you what, it's a work and it's not that sexy when you're actually doing it. And that's why most people don't do it. The other reason people don't do it is they get overwhelmed, right? You think about doing all this planning and mapping. And, I have maps now where I can show you, I know every single way that someone can come into my business, i.e. onto my email list. I know exactly where they go based on where they came in. I know exactly where they go next. I know exactly what you're going to get sold. In fact, I'll tell you. Because everything you can buy from the show notes of this podcast will actually help you implement what I am talking about right now. How's that for meta? Okay. So if let's say you go and you opt into my email list, but you haven't purchased anything, right? So you're going to get followed up with whatever you opted in for. You're going to get my getting to know you sequence. And then you're probably going to get some emails about the pot of gold because the pot of gold is awesome. And it's the entry point to really being able to get strategic about your content is to know what the heck you have and where it is and be able to put your hands on it, right? So if you haven't gotten the pot of gold yet, you should go do that, right? Go to carveldigital.com/gold, or just get on my email list and wait for the email. But going to the link is faster. So that's the first step, right? And after you hear about that, then you're probably going to hear about the workshop that I did in June. We did a content to clients workshop in June that was awesome. It was 3 days of targeted lessons around really nailing your content strategy and how to create that customer journey individual to the businesses of everybody who showed up live. And if you're sad about that, if you missed that, I am going to be running that workshop live again in September. So again, you're going to want to be on the email list so that you hear about that. And then you're going to hear about Content Bootcamp because that is the flagship. Like that's the flagship offer where if you're listening to all this and it sounds really good, but you get stuck when you try to implement, as a lot of people do because it's not your area of expertise, nor should you try to make it be, then you're going to need some help and some guidance. And that's why Content Bootcamp exists. So there's all these levels and all these ways that you can get further help than just listening to me talk on this podcast. And guess what? We'll link to all of them in the show notes and you can go get the one that's right for you. Okay. So, And then the bonus is if you do get on my email list, when you get that third email, I'm going to ask you, hey, where are you at in business? Which one of these things best describes you? And I'm doing that because I want to be able to put things in front of you that are useful for the stage of business you're at, for the revenue level you're at, for whatever issues you're having with either content strategy or technology. Like I want to know those things so I can give you more relevant and more helpful information. And it's one thing to collect that information, but then you actually need to follow up on it and follow through. And here's the thing: if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, this is a process, right? This doesn't, just come like full formed. It's something that you just bite, eat the elephant one bite at a time, right? So you start out with saying like, hey, I don't have a nurture sequence, I don't have a welcome sequence. So you can start there, right? By just making sure everybody who comes into your world gets welcomed and they don't get ignored. That's a great place to start. So let me recap. Here's 4 things plus a bonus. What to do after you get a lead, and make sure, because here's the thing, especially please do not be out here paying for ads and paying for traffic when you don't have follow up on that back end that's going to nurture every single lead and make sure that you get the revenue generation out of those efforts. Okay. Do this first. Fix your back end first and make sure people are going to get followed up with. And then you can worry about, pouring more traffic onto it. Otherwise, you're just pouring water into a leaky bucket. All right. So let's recap. You need to follow up for, someone who opts in for something. You need to follow up specifically about what they opted in for. Number 2 is you need to have a welcome sequence for new folks who are brand new to you and, don't know you at all. You need to have a welcome sequence that tells them about you and your business and your history and how you're going to help them and how you're different from everybody else out there. Third thing is you need to have a campaign to sell your offer, right? We're not just in this to just have a conversation, although that's great. I love talking to people, but I'm in this to help you actually get better results with your business. So you want to have a campaign that actually sells your offer, and then you want to have a long-term nurture strategy. And don't overthink it and don't overcommit. Right? I don't care if who says, oh, you got to have daily emails, or else if you can't commit to that schedule, then don't do it. If once a week is what you can commit to, then do that. Right? If you want to batch all your things once a month so that it's done, like whatever works for you. There's no one way to get this done, but you do have to have all the pieces in place. And then the last thing is the bonus is a way to survey and ask people, what actually do they care about? What are they struggling with so that you can put better, more relevant information and offers in front of them. If you do those things and you put that in place, I would be very surprised if your business was not very, very different a year from now or even 6 months from now. Because you're going to start to leverage those efforts and you're going to feel better about actually all the efforts that you're going through to get people on your list in the first place. I know that there was definitely a period where I really wasn't trying that hard to get more attention and get more traffic because I knew there were all these holes, right? So I had to go like give the cobbler's kids shoes. And now I'm like, yep, come one, come all, right? Because if you need what I have, then I want to give it to you. All right, y'all. That is what I have for you today. Super quick, super powerful. I hope that you implement this. And if you're struggling, just know that, this is a meta episode and that I have products and services for every stage of this journey that can help you get to it. If you get to all this and you're like, okay, I need help with my content strategy, so I'm going to jump on these workshop recordings, or I'm going to jump all the way into bootcamp and I'm going to nail my messaging so that I know, my content is fly and it's going to attract the people that I want and I'm going to get great clients from it. And then you need to systemize and you're like, oh, that's not my ministry, right? I actually have an agency on the back end where we actually do that stuff for people. That is the whole point of bootcamp, is to get people sort of through that valley of being able to get consistent revenue so that they can pay for the help they need to do things that they don't want to do. So if that's you, if you're already at the level where you're like, please, someone just do this for me. I actually, at this moment in time, have 2 spots left for the year to start that process. So if that's something you're interested in, hop on my list and just reach out and say, done for you, right? And we can talk about that. Who knows if the spots will still be there by the time this episode airs, but you can always get in for 2022, right? So, meta episode, go check out the show notes. Go check out the resources that I have for you to get this going for yourself, because there's literally no better feeling than knowing that if people are interested in your business, you have a system that doesn't require your time at all for people to go in and get the information they need about how they can get your help. All right, y'all. Now is the time when, if this was your first episode, good for you, because it's a good one to come in on, jam-packed with value. And if you find this valuable, then I want to invite you to go ahead and subscribe, to follow the podcast, and to leave us a 5-star rating and review. I think I was at 59 last time I checked. So I'd love to just get over the hump and get that round number going. And the last question is, who needs to hear this? Who has a bunch of holes in their follow-up game? Who is spending a bunch of money on the front end, worrying about getting leads, and then doesn't know what to do with them afterwards? Because that is a really expensive way to run your business. So if you know that person, do them a favor and share this with them right now, and they'll thank you for it. All right, y'all, we got one more episode in season 3, and I look forward to chatting with you next week. Until then, don't forget to begin as you mean to go on.